Everybody's doing all right this fine day. We'll get started here in just a minute. Good morning, good morning. It's good to see the good number we have here and the handful that is joining us online at the moment. And we're glad that whatever mechanism you can use to be with us this morning, we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're with us. And it'll give me just a second to pull up one other item here so I can advance my slides. Very good. 1 Timothy chapter 3, we'll get to the end of that chapter and move into chapter 4 here very quickly. We've been having discussion about the advancement of the gospel. We've seen in 1 Timothy chapter 1 about the purpose of the commandment, the pure heart, from a good conscience and sincere faith. The manifestation of that is that the glorious gospel provides doctrine. It provides teaching that gives us information on how we are to proceed. And these letters that are coming forth in Timothy and in Titus are really the letters for evangelism or evangelistic outreach for Timothy. He's going to take this letter that he's received from Paul, and probably an 8-year period since the church at Ephesus has begun, and he's going there to set things in order, if you will, and same thing that Titus will do. We're not going to stop and do a complete study on the qualification of elders, even though we've kind of drifted into that for a couple of weeks, and that's okay, because we want to continue because when Timothy walked away, believe that there were elders in the church, and the members heard the words and came together and brought this gathering. Now, I brought this up from Ed Harrell's little pamphlet, Emergence of the Church of Christ Denomination, because we are pushing up to 7 years, our anniversary of being we had no building at all. We met in a coffee shop, and now this was, I go back and look now, I'm getting these updates of this was the first time or the second time. We started a series on compassion, if you would remember, in 2015. So we didn't have a church building. And we have a building to assemble in now, but we don't have a building. We're going to have a men's business meeting after the services this morning. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is our lease is up in a couple of years. So when the lease is up in 2 years, and we don't have a lease signed that says Little Rock Church of Christ, then we don't exist anymore. Because, we don't have a place. So we got to meet so we can survive. That's how we think. That's how we look. And in our society, may not be far from the truth in some respects. But look, it is property-less to property ownership. This is the basic change that takes place as a religious group moves toward a more sophisticated religious experience. Now, Ed's not taking a swipe at us about being non-church owners, because we did a really good job of getting out of that coffee shop and getting into a place that kind of looks like a church, you know, with the exception of some of the duct tape on the floor and some of those things, you know. That much of the membership of the Church of Christ has made this change to economic comfort and stability is apparent to the casual observer. We want to come in to a place that is comfortable and be comfortable, and we insist that it has certain amenities that provide us that level of comfort. Otherwise, I'm looking for another place. I'm going to look for a different church. And so Timothy's dealing with those things. At least this is the kind of mentality I believe that you are looking at, because the division in Ephesus was over the money and how the money is going to be. You got Alexander and Hymenaeus. You have the situation that happened just a few years earlier in Lystra, where those that made their money on doing other things, and now the church comes into play. People give their money to it, and you have people in these qualifications of elders that they can't be greedy. Why? Why can it not be that they can be greedy? What's the reason for that? Why is it so important that an elder not be greedy for filthy lucre? What's the reason?
It would exchange the truth of the gospel for money.
Going to change the teaching. In fact, you might even hear a sermon that would sound something like this. We're going to give the contribution. We're going to sing, it's free, oh yes, I know it's free. And we're going to give the contribution, and at the middle of the sermon, we're going to give it again, because the more money you put into that basket, the more money God's going to give you back. That is prosperity preaching at its core. That is what throughout churches all over this world, televangelism has that ugly view, because men get up there and say, send me your $39 a month so the Lord can bless you. And that's the kind of thing that he dealt with. That's why I keep bringing these things up. And hospitable, able to teach, not a novice. These are the three things that I'm kind of leaving in your mind over the next few weeks to continue thinking about this, the qualifications. And then when we get to Titus, we'll do it again. We'll get 2 times to kind of consider these things, and then we will move forward through that. Now, 1 Timothy chapter 3, when we pick up in verse 4, moreover, he must be of a good testimony among those who are outside, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. So there it is, that he would get in a corrupt situation where he would have power, if you will, authority to make decisions, but he would make those decisions for his own personal best interest rather than the best interest overall. And that is a very, very dangerous place that we can find ourselves in. Deacons, and we're going to walk through these quickly, and then we're going to do a little chart for you that will show you how these lay on together so we don't belabor this. Likewise, deacons must be reverent, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy for money, holding the mystery of faith with a pure conscience. But let these first be tested, then let them serve as deacons, being found blameless. Likewise, their wives must be reverent, not slanderers, temperate, faithful in all things. Let deacons be the husband of one wife, ruling their children and their own houses well. For those who have served well as deacons obtain for themselves a good standing and great boldness in the faith, which is in Christ Jesus. So this is kind of the summary, if you will, or the conclusion of our study and of elders deacons to Timothy. And that verse 10, let these also be tested. And, well, actually, let me give you this. Let these also be tested. Let them serve as deacons, being found blameless. So, a couple of questions to consider. And how are they tested? If a deacon is to come in and serve, they are to be tested. You don't have to answer that now, but you just consider this. And how can anyone be blameless? Now, we have pointed this out week before last and last week. An individual is blameless because they have they've recognized an error in their way, and they have turned away from that error. The blameless here is not that you have someone who has never sinned or never to be blamed for something that they've done in their life. Everyone has sinned and come short of the glory of God. The blameless aspect is ready, willing, and has taken the next step. And the other aspect of being faithful in all things, when you hear language like this, be tested, be blameless, be faithful in all things. If I read that, I could say there's nobody that can ever serve. And why do you think that many churches, why is it that we, Terry, in our growing up ages, now you always had elders, most of the congregations you were at, I believe. I was not so fortunate. Some of the smaller, like in Jonesboro, there were some smaller congregations, and they'd been around, kind of like this one, where they've been 8 or 10 or 12 years or something of that nature. And oftentimes we didn't have elders. And maybe it's because we looked at these things, or we just never approached them, or there wasn't anybody there to qualify. But what do we know about a church that doesn't have elders and deacons? What do we know about that? If we do not, what does the Bible call that situation? Lacking. So it's lacking in something that it needs. And so maybe this will help us. And what does this tell us about qualifications? And we did a little story about this last week about elders. When it starts talking about blameless, faithful in all things, what does this tell us about qualifications? And you got to be very careful. Some I believe, you have subjective aspects, some of them you do not. But the one thing you know is that an individual who accepts the role or desires the office is now, they have demonstrated the qualities that exist in this reading to some degree, to some measure, and that they are willing to grow and develop and apply the things that have been stated and taught. And also this topic that comes up with the deacons, that comes up for us as we consider. This is, I think, when you get the larger view of how to go about making this happen in the proper way, is you're looking for people that can rule well. That rule well. That is to set or to place before, to preside, to be in a position that they can help the situation. Us as a congregation and the various activities and the things that we have laying out there in front of us. And people are now doing that. Terry is currently involved in trying to arrange things, but the reality is the elders would help arrange the teaching curriculum, and the deacons would help to expedite and to get that distributed to the proper place. And when you don't have that, then you have all the hats being worn by a handful of people all the time, in trying to do the best that we can. So the elders willingly, publicly set themselves forward as, let's see, I've got this worded wrong. Others can look for spiritual direction and guidance and counsel. I mean, an elder, when an individual allows that to be placed before his name or behind, in other words, he is serving in the position as an elder, then what we find is this individual has set himself up to be inconvenienced, to be a servant, to be willing to be called, to be willing to step into a situation that's needing spiritual guidance and help, and to know, to learn, and to help. So, 1 Peter 5, 2 and 3, not by constraint. These are the conditions, again, that we have to really place at the very center of one who could and would serve. Not by force or considering it burdensome, but to do it willingly or cheerfully. It's the same affection that I have for preaching and doing the work of an evangelist. Would do it and not be compensated. It's not predicated upon a paycheck, not predicated upon a building. So this idea of doing what we do willingly, cheerfully, of a ready mind, not for shameful or dishonorable gain. There's nothing in it that they get out of it that is for filthy lucre, a pattern or a model, being examples to the flock. So that is, this manner of life denotes the ruling by the word of God. In 1 Peter 5:3, definitely, it shows that this example of following the word is what brings us into this position. And this is the one thing that I think, well, when I had my conversation with my father, who spent his years in the church serving, had been a deacon in previous years, but they didn't have elders at the time. The congregation was there long enough, had grown, some men had matured and demonstrated. He was one of them, and he took on the responsibility to serve. And yes, honored, of course. It's an honorable thing to serve in, and it should be worthy of double honor in many times. But not being lords over those entrusted to you, but an example to the flock. Nothing that would be asked or said to the person that the elder is overseeing, there would be nothing that they would ask of them that they would not be doing or willing to do themselves. And because that's when lording occurs, is obviously when you as servant must do what I as master tell you to do. In matters of faith, elders insist on respect for the authority of Christ. Whoever transgresses does not abide in the doctrine of Christ, does not have God, and that's what we're going to get into right now at the end of chapter 3, is that thing. What is the doctrine of Christ, or the authority of Christ, this mystery of godliness? Manners of judgment or opinion, they steer in channels of expediency and due consideration for the church's good judgment, the betterment of the church. And sadly, the betterment of the church can be defined in many ways. How could you define what would be better for the church? How different could you define that term? What would be good for this congregation? What would be better for this congregation? Well, you can find that a lot of ways, right? We need more money. We need more stuff. We need new chairs. Need a new building. Yeah, what you said. Yeah, we need elders and deacons. Thank you.
Faithful members.
We need faithful. We need faithful, God-fearing, willing to serve, willing to share members. And when you have that, it doesn't matter if you have a building. You'll find a place to meet. We did. I don't know. I still don't know how y'all found it. I was looking for 12 people in the back of Guillermo's Coffee. And 35 people showed up. And then 80 people showed up. And so the things that we seek to do are accomplished out of the desire of our heart to serve. And it doesn't matter on the other. But we do live in this society that appeals to comfort. So we could just say this, it'd be a lot easier then if we had a really nice facility. It was very comfortable. And it was in a good location. Easy and accessible, and everybody could see it, then they would be able to find us easier. That's logical. But when we begin to utilize that as the criteria for our conversions, what's happened? Let's do it this year and get us a nice building. And so 2 years from now, guess what? That nice new building, it's not nice and new anymore. And so we need something else. So the amenities begin to divert the direction. And when it happens, you see it in churches. And it's just a little decision in one area. If we change our doctrine or we don't preach on divorce, we can get more people to come in. Because that's a real hot issue and people don't really want to hear that taught on. Look, that's when we've lost, what we're about to read. And that is why we're here. This chart just simply gives you elders and deacons, and how the Bible lays it out. Above reproach, sober-minded, self-controlled, hospitable, able to teach, not violent, not quarrelsome, not a new convert, thought well of outsiders. The deacon, not double-tongued, holds the mystery of the faith, tested first, proved blameless. These are the things listed under their name. Together, one wife, respectable, dignified, not a drunkard or drinking to wine, not a lover of money, not greedy, managing the household and managing children. And for a casual view of those things, you're just looking at a member of the Lord's church seeking to serve him faithfully. And there are certain things that he has had to occur in his life that qualifies him to serve as an elder or a deacon. And that is how we learn. What is a deacon? Marshall Patton's truth commentary on 1 Timothy. Obviously, it is a twofold sense, general and specific. In the general sense, it is used with reference to all Christians. In context of determining the nature and service rendered in a specific sense, it refers to a special class of servants with certain qualifications who are appointed to work under the direction of elders. That is, when the translators judge the word to be used in the latter sense, that is, the focus of the deacon in the office, the English word deacon is called into play. Otherwise, the word simply means servant, waiter. And I think for us, sometimes maybe we think of it even better in that way. A servant or a minister is used. The possible exception is in the 6th chapter of Acts. Here, a special class of certain qualifications was appointed to several to serve in material matters. All of which implies that they were deacons, though not designated as such. So you see how that a role, when we read these and we talk about elders, deacons, and we've elevated them sometimes into these, this is the CEO. and you have these positions like that, and we're positions of power. And we do, unfortunately, see when a novice gets a hold of that, it is such a tragedy, because it's just like, it's why the Bible put it in there. You go, well, it's not going to be that bad. Oh yeah, it will be. When someone is not prepared, the decisions go in the wrong direction and the thing becomes undone. It implies deacons were not designated. Thus, our text has the official servants designated, like in Philippians 1 and verse 1. Elders, deacons, saints. And that's really all that you find in the summation. Well, Sure does take a long time to get all that said. And it really does not make decisions for you. It puts within you the principles upon which you as a congregation bring forth men desiring of the office and tested, proven, and the effect is this: those who serve, they obtain great boldness in the faith. We begin to talk about it. They talk about it. It's who they become. It's an identity. It's added to their list of things that they are. A deacon or an elder. And like I said, if we just transliterate that, it's waiter. In Acts the 6th chapter, I think you have, the time when you see how that is being laid forth. You recall, and let me make this a point. I don't know if we're going to get to the last few verses of chapter 3, and we'll get clear of that and get right into 4. It's going to go much faster when we get past this. But I want to make one point from Acts the 6th chapter about the selection of deacons and about the work. Because what you have here is, in Acts 6, in this, is the selection, I think, is exemplified because the apostles were there. They were chosen. And what was their appointed work? What were the apostles' appointed work?
Spread the gospel.
Spread the gospel. Preach the good news. Now, while they were preaching and the church was being established, there arose a complaint among the Hellenists. What was wrong? Certain class, widows, were being neglected. What was about to happen in that church? A complaint rose up. What was going to happen? What's going to happen? There's going to be a split. You ain't going to take care of these folks. We're going to take care of them, and let's go. So what happened? The Holy Spirit, not yet to assigning the elders at this time, spoke directly and through the apostles, and they said, let us stay doing what we're supposed to do. You do what? What did he say? When I say you, I'm pointing me too, but I'm saying, he said, you, what did you have to do? You get men, select from among yourselves men to take care of this. Now, an eldership might have said, Hellenists aren't that important anyway. They don't contribute. They're the poorer side of the group. They don't really in lockstep, and I think they're not worthy. Or that, the budget won't allow. I mean, all the reasons, but when we look at this issue in Acts the 6th chapter, we minimize, we got some men that can serve as deacons, they just do this and that. No. It prevented division. And it filled a need that was a void. And there's spots in this congregation, we all know about that, and it's always been that way. I've been in a congregation that had a good number of elders and deacons, and a lot of the people I'm ministering to never got looked in on. And these are the things that we have to make sure, and there again, the meeting of urgent needs. These are other things that you have a group of men that are set in, and we are, as this local family, and we function and operate together, and when needs arise, they are met. Some will be met by the elders as they preside in instructing the Word of God and helping in that respect. And you would have elders that would be tending, or deacons that would be tending to any of the things that just needed to be handled for the function and the processing and the work of the local body. So the deacon must be reverent, honest, sober, faithful, a proven man, a man with a faithful wife, a family man. And the church that received these instructions carried them out with the information that was given to them. Well, so, we need men willing to serve. Accepting and serving as a deacon can help develop and prepare a man to be an elder. We should consider it a blessing and honor to be able to serve the church and provide for its needs. And Christians should seek to fill in whatever role that they can to become qualified. It's a desire. And after all, when we look at serving, we just consider what Jesus did for us. All right. We're going to end it there. I'm going to read. Y'all read with me. We'll lay this as the bed for next week. Beginning in verse 14. In 1 Timothy, you have these little, like, it's like, here's a sheet, and deal with this part. Now, here's your next assignment, and here's your next. He's just giving him what seems to be little clips of these are all the things you're going to have to deal with. And maybe these are his sermon outlines, if you will, for how he's going to teach the congregation. These things I write to you, though I hope to come to you shortly. But if I am delayed, I write so that you may know how to conduct yourself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of truth. Big mouthful of words. Because he's saying, I'm coming, but if I don't come, I'm writing this to you so you're going to know what to do. And it makes it important to us. And 2 Timothy is even going to elevate the urgency because he's not coming. He's going to die. And all you're going to have is what I just told you. I mean, what he just revealed. And then these words. The church as the pillar and ground of truth. We'll pick this up next week. Without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. Now, some of us said this about the way, if you look at your Bible, you may see that it changes and it looks more like a poem or a song. It shifts the appearance. And most suggest that this was a saying in the church. You know how we might pick up certain catchphrases and use them from time to time? Well, this apparently was a truism and a saying that had been developed or picked up. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen by angels, preached among the Gentiles, believed up in the world, received up in glory. Very fascinating. Let's look at that next week. And actually, I'll show you a chart that'll look something like this. So, the mystery of godliness here, in the flesh, by the Spirit, seen by angels, proclaimed to all, believed, raised, and then chapter 4. The Spirit says these things are going to happen. Deceiving spirits. So when you take in the flesh, seen by spirit, or justified by the Spirit, seen by angels, proclaimed by all, believed and raised in glory. Those points, somehow, when you assimilate them, this saying is going to help us understand, deal with, and know what Timothy was charged to do and what we are charged to do when these things happen. Because we're talking about deceiving spirits, demonic teaching. Some of it was in the form of religious piety, like forbidding to marry. In other words, they would show asceticism. They would show that they would, the more I do spiritually, then I'm at a higher level. And Paul is saying this is wrong. That is not true. He's showing us how to live our lives together in unity, in harmony, as we help and serve one another. And when he gets to chapter 4, this apostle, or this evangelist, is he is being told, you go out and you preach the word. And you continue, and those points that he was given here will become very significant. And there are many false teachings out there that deny Jesus came in the flesh, that Jesus was justified by the Spirit. We'll look at those next week. Thank you, and we'll see you next. I'll see you at 10:30. We'll be back here in just a few minutes. Brother. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got the hook. There it is. Never know, man.
Is Don preaching tonight?
Tonight, I am.
You're
Meeting out.
Yep.
There, Aaron is doing the serve. Oh, there, I forgot to put the where is it? Now you go with that. There's the.
Well, that's going to continue. Whether you grow or not, you hear those stuff already. Jaden's good to have you with today. Good morning. You okay? Cindy, you doing okay? You still good looking? You got good eyesight? I guess so.
not feeling well. She's at home. Her blood count got a little low, and she's taking shots for that. She's on some antibiotics. The Kieslers, or specifically Jessica, has got COVID. They're not with us today. Susie needs cataract surgery on both of her eyes, but she cannot do that until her A1C comes down. Her daughter is also having surgery this Tuesday. The Brightwisers are not with us today. They're still recovering. Maria Howard has expressed that she would like cards, calls, visits, just check on her. She's still having many issues right now. She's staying home. Also keep David Tall in your prayers and all the difficulties that he is enduring. Out of town, we've got Zinda, she's in Dallas. Bruce Dobbins is with his folks in Pine Bluff, and the shippers are out of town. Let's not forget we have a business meeting after service today.